translated to your daughter? How did it affect your daughter, and how did she deal with it? Because I know for myself with anxiety, because I too went through that tumultuous household. I mean, literally, my dad would break dishes.
Right.
I mean, the reason I chose the title Peace Beyond the Splinter is because a splinter for me is real, and it's actual splinter. And so I know it impacted me so much so, and it impacted my relationship, it impacted my children, it impacted my wedding day. I mean, it impacted everything.
Right.
I'm very explicit about it in the book. But tell me about how it impacted your daughter and how she manifested, how it was manifested in her.
Sure. So one of the things that I realized very quickly was that anything that is not healed in your childhood definitely follows you to adulthood. And I think, obviously your book spoke to that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I felt like I was definitely a great mom
Mm-hmm.
and a great provider and a great protector and all of these things, my daughter was still, struggling with the fact that I spent a lot of time at work. She also saw, a lot of times we don't realize the behavior that we model for our children. So even though I felt like, wow, I'm keeping it all together and, don't show any weakness, she's also learning that. So I started to notice that she began to struggle with anxiety and depression as well. And I think that was another wake-up call for me. I realized that her healing of her mental challenges, her mental health would start with me healing my own.
Wow.
So we actually both started the journey together.
And how did it manifest in her exactly? Like, how did her anxiety come out?
So sure. Her anxiety started with, we had experienced some losses. So both of my parents are deceased, which is how I came to sort of raise my siblings.
So they both died.
Right. Yes. I came to raise my siblings. And so, for example, my daughter never was able to meet my mother because she passed away before she was born. But when my daughter was in elementary school, when she was in first grade, my father passed away. And then when she was in second grade, her father's father passed away. And then when she was in third grade, my sister passed away. So it's one thing as an adult to experience a lot of loss and try and learn how to grieve and walk through that grieving process.
Right.
But for a child, it's definitely more challenging.
Wow.
So her anxiety came from bad things keep happening. So the expectation was there's anxiety because I'm fearing that something bad's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen to me. Something bad may happen to my mom since everyone in the family is passing away. And the issue, the real eye opener was that I hadn't modeled for her how to deal with grief and loss and just allow yourself to break. I'm not sure if my daughter had really ever seen me, vulnerable or crying. So
she didn't know how.
Right. So she didn't know how to deal with it. So she internalized it all. And
that's what I did, actually.
Right. Yes.
Yes. And you wake up, I would get up with like worry, like a bird perched on my chest, like just worry, just feeling worried, but not sure why. So I know exactly what she experienced. Oh my. So, and that put her, what I call often the pit. Because then from there, there's nowhere to go, because if that's your constant state, you're in a state of, you're constantly going into, spiraling down into the pit.
Right.
Wow. So the splinter started off in your household, and in effect, then the death, and then you go into adulthood trying to control it with perfection. And when that didn't work, it fell apart. So when it fell apart and you realize that, man, I have to deal with my childhood, what steps did you take?
So the first thing I did, especially when I saw how much stress I was under at work. So even though I was working hard, it clearly wasn't making the impact that I wanted to. So I kind of felt defeated there. And then even when I would go home and felt like I was being like this great mom, this perfect mom, and she's being cared for and provided for, she was struggling. So I was like, wow, here are the two areas where I spend most of my time. And I feel like I'm failing in both.
You had to face the woman in the mirror. Couldn't run no more. Nowhere to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so the first thing I did is I just prayed for guidance. I prayed. I know in your book you talk about how you had to use a weapon in your arsenal that you had always had at your disposal. Mm-hmm. And even though it sort of sounds so like cliche, like, oh, just pray about it. But, you know, the power of prayer is amazing.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I grew up hearing about prayer, but I really didn't know what prayer was. And
exactly.
The thing is, I'm still discovering the power of prayer. Like, I feel like I never get enough, like, of learning about it. So tell me how it really impacted you, like how it really manifested for you.
So I spent a lot of time in prayer because I did not really know what to do or where to turn. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who, you know, for example, at work, you know, obviously, if this was a very high demand, you're from New York. My main headquarters was in New York. And so it can be very fast paced. Mm-hmm. You know, things need to happen, you know, quickly and immediately. It's very high energy. And so you almost don't have time to kind of, you know, deal with anything that's going on because, you know, things need to keep moving.
Yeah.
So when I realized that I needed to pray, it was because I didn't have any other resources. I felt like I had, you know, kind of been abandoned a little bit by my coworkers, by my even some family didn't understand, you know, and I realized how it was really affecting my work product, but it was affecting the people. What I was going through was affecting the people around me. Yeah. There were times when I would go to pray and I would just be exhausted emotionally.
Wow.
You know, just like really like, you know, like I need to pray, but I am just like, felt like only like sighs would come out, a sigh or just like a deep breath, because I was like it's so much going on. Where do I even begin? But I knew that it was important to continue to do it. And I would ask other people to pray for me as well. I felt like it was that powerful. Right. There was something comforting about someone saying, I'm praying for you, that just gave me a little bit of sigh of relief.
That is awesome. Yes, I'm still experiencing and still benefiting from having taken the time to develop the intimacy.
Right.
I think that's the thing. A lot of times we hear people, oh, just pray about it. We're praying for you. And it's so trite, right?
Right.
What I've learned is that when you really connect, oh my gosh, it is so powerful. It's so liberating to connect with God. You can sit and say a bunch of words, jibber jabber, but when you connect, I call it the secret sauce. Yeah. Is there a particular area in the book that when you read it, you thought, that's speaking to me?
Sure. So I mean, there was a lot. First of all, throughout your book, there was so much that resonated with me. When you talked about, you know, a lot of times when you talked about your childhood and sort of, you know, you talked about the green mug and dishes shattering. But when you talked about how your parents kind of, you know, put some value in the things, I know that was kind of how my family was as well. Mm-hmm. When you talked about this area of being stuck, like I kind of definitely felt like there were areas where I was stuck. I felt like I was sort of stuck in this image that I was portraying. Even though I knew it, wow, this probably isn't healthy to be working this many hours. Mm-hmm. It probably isn't healthy to be sacrificing, you know, being under so much stress and sacrificing my mental health in this way. Mm-hmm. You know, but I kind of felt like, but I have to work hard, right? Isn't that the only way to climb that ladder and achieve success and happiness? It's just all of this hard work, no matter what, you know?
Wow. So now that you have gone through this journey of, you know, really exploring and being willing to face your splinter, what message would you give to women, professional women, mothers, just people who are feeling? I tend to reach out to women, but I know that men get stuck sometimes too. And if you're here, welcome. There are a few people here. Cynthia, yes. Cynthia says yes, it is. Tamay, thank you for joining. Just tell me, what message would you share or lesson would you want them to take away from your story in terms of identifying and being willing to work at digging out the splinter. I think a lot of times people, they know something is wrong. Kind of like how you were saying, I knew that things were wrong. I know, but I was just trying to keep it together. And the truth is that just won't last. I tried for the longest. I mean, growing up, I mean, I looked picture perfect. You know, people say, you look like you should be a model. I mean, I looked picturesque, but I was falling apart. I literally felt like eggshells because I was trying so hard to keep together. I don't want no one to think that I have a mental problem with anxiety. I don't want anyone to think that you're not normal. I was afraid to show up and be honest. I was afraid to be vulnerable. I was afraid. I was so concerned with just not being normal. And so, but now that I've gone through the journey and realized that by sharing, it's helped me so much to help other people. It's so liberating. So tell me about how you are now using what you've gone through to really help. And I particularly loved also to hear your story about your daughter, because you've both gone through some stuff. I call it splinters. Yes. It's not splinter, it's splinters. Yes. But here you are today, a sought after speaker, helping people financially, left your job and started your own business. And you've managed to raise your daughter beautifully so that she too can be a sought after speaker. Tell me what you would share with our audience for them to know that they too can live beyond your splinter, or even if they're in it, to still triumph and thrive. What would you?
So the first thing that I would say is, don't be afraid to do the hard work. I know that for me, you know, being able to go to therapy, go to those sessions and kind of dig up my past, it was certainly a painful experience, digging up all those painful memories, going all the way back, you know, 25, 30, you know, almost 40 years ago, you know, to talk about some really painful experiences. But that was part of what I needed to do to walk the complete healing process, not just try and cover it up, not just do the Band-Aid. I think one of the things that really hurt me was that I really needed to take off that mask. That's one of the first messages I would give to people, is to say, don't be afraid to take off that mask.
Live brave is what you're saying. Live brave. Yes.
Don't be afraid to take off that, you know, that cape, that superwoman or superpower cape that we like to wear. Don't be afraid to face, you know, this stigma head on. A lot of people are afraid of the words mental health or stress, anxiety, or depression. So we try and cover it up, or we try and suppress it. We try and hide, you know, kind of not deal with the things that we're going through. But I'm telling you that when you do, you will find that peace that you talk about in your book. You will be able to live in that joy and abundance that you talk about in your book. And the thing that I could really resonate with is when you talk about, I believe it's on page 65 is sort of where you say, where you talk about in your stuckdom. I love that chapter, because I realized that I was stuck in that mode. Even though I knew it was unhealthy, I was stuck in that mode. And you can't help but wonder, what would my life be like had I
money I would have today?
And that's the same thing I said. I thought I could be a better person. I could have been maybe a better mom, a better employee. You know, feel like I could have released all of that anxiety so much sooner, instead of walking in that fear, instead of walking in that period of trying to, you know, put on this image. I could have just taken off that mask and just walked through that healing process sooner and been able to accomplish things sooner. And
But you know what? There's a reason why we went through that, because now we have a story to tell about why you shouldn't do it, audience.
The great thing was, not only once I went through that healing process, not only did I improve my relationship with myself, I got to know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. But I also improved my relationship with my daughter. And we felt like we had a pretty good relationship, but our relationship got even better once we released all of that baggage that we were carrying around, all of that emotional baggage, and was able to, do some forgiveness, work there. You just feel incredibly lighter.
That's so beautiful. And so your daughter today, she's traveling around giving speeches. How old is your daughter now?
So she actually just turned 17. So
and she's the speaker. I mean, really, this is amazing. This is really incredible.
So I believe she started her public speaking when she was actually 15. Now, my daughter, because she struggled with anxiety and depression, let me just back up a little bit. Anxiety and depression has many faces. Daughter's anxiety and depression would prevent her from functioning. It was difficult for her to get up, get out, go to school, stay there the entire day. But for me, I was actually functionally anxious and depressed. Wow. I could function. I could get up and go to work and go to the grocery store and come home and cook and clean, and yet I could sit and someone in front of someone and still be functionally depressed. And it wasn't until my therapist called it out. Now here I am in his office with a suit on, completely made up, and I will never forget how he looked me in the face and said, "You're depressed."
Really?
Yes, you are.
Wow.
You are definitely depressed. And he was right. Starting to do that work of taking off that mask, looking myself in the mirror, and just having a really serious truth talk with myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am so glad you decided to live brave, because it's just being brave to come out, to show up for you. I often talk about people, what I do still is a continuous process for me, and never thinking that you accomplish it and you're good now. It's not true. The personal development journey, the growth journey is a continuous process. Getting up in the mornings and showing up for me in my silence, my affirmations, my visualization, exercise, my reading and my writing is me continuously working on me. He says that's my frustration too. I wish I could have faced things much sooner.
Yes.
Me, I bet you got a testimony today.
Yes. Exactly.
I know the feeling of, man, I wish I could have done it sooner. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. But I think a lot of people feel that way. But the fact that we're here and being aware and being willing to come out, and a lot of people still not able to come on camera to talk about they've struggled with anxiety and depression and PTSD. And I mean, even in our community, the Black community, it's like a taboo. But I am saying, be brave, live brave. I left my job. I started a business about 13 years ago in the midst of my anxiety struggle. And it was hard. And my husband is a supporter, so that was helpful. But then when we had issues in our marriage, I had to deal with the anxiety and the issues. I mean, and all that stuff was coming from my childhood. And unless I dealt with it, I would not be able to survive, much less thrive. And so today, just like you, and your story really resonates with me, because I see that you stared your splinter down and you said, you know what? I'm going to take you on. And you started business, you raised your daughter, and now you're a sought-after speaker. And I'm looking to be a sought-after speaker, just like you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Can you tell the audience where they can find information about you if they're looking for help with financial, wellness and speak, the opportunity to speak or to hear you speak? How can they reach you and get in touch with you? Talk about your resources and how you're helping people today.
Sure, absolutely. So you can follow me on you can visit my website, which is www.rhondamwood.com. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and also Twitter. And my handle is Rhonda M. Wood 1, because there's one of me. So one on Instagram and Twitter as well.
I am so glad you joined us today. And please pick up my book, Peace Beyond the Splinter.
I've actually read it twice.
Really? Wow. I'm flattered. To reclaim your promise of peace and profit from anxiety's grip through prayer. And once you face the splinter, you don't know. I'm still on this journey of exploring what else I can do. So because I passed out from anxiety with speaking in 2016,
yes,
I decided I'm going to launch Speaks platform to tell people to come grow with me. So whatever other splinter or residue that is left over from my experience with anxiety, I can continue to face them, because it's never a one and done job. You're always in the process of growing and becoming. I think that's the best thing I like about my journey.
Yes.
Always becoming. Isn't that great? Don't you agree? When you decide to be brave and to face a splinter, you get the freedom to always become. We don't arrive. We just keep becoming. And so thank you so much, Rhonda, for joining us. Please contact her for her services. She's a testimony to growth and digging out and facing a splinter. So I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you so much,
girl. Thank you, audience, for joining us. We are very grateful that you joined us. And to me, Cynthia, Denise, and everybody else that I'm missing here. But thank you. Have a great evening and continue to be relentless about becoming the next best version of you. Please join us in our group, Peace Beyond the Splinter, like our page, Eve Speaks, and I'll catch you next time in another episode of Eve Speaks.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.